We are on to our last Britannic video for 2023, and I know that since I've been doing a lot of Britannic videos recently, they have become quite popular on the channel, and I never thought I would do another one, but since it was requested at the very last minute, I thought that it would be fair to include that, especially since it's one that's dedicated to the 30 people who lost their lives in the disaster. And this video is narrated once again by Leo. Leo, thank you so much for narrating once again, and I always enjoy your narrations as well as many others. And we couldn't do it without you. Leo, thank you so much. And until then, I will leave you in Leo's capable hands as we talk about the propellers of the Britannic.
On the 21st of November of 1916, His Majesty's hospital ship Britannic would sink in the Aegean Sea in a time of roughly 55 minutes with the loss of 30 lives. The lives that were lost include a few privates, a lieutenant, some tremors, and stewards. The reason why these souls lost their lives was due to a set of circumstances that would play out like a scene from a Final Destination movie. In this video, we are going to be looking into the Britannic's propellers and the story of them during the sinking. Before we dive into the propellers, we need to understand the basis of Britannic's actual construction. Britannic's keel would be laid on the 30th of November 1911, following an idea that responded to White Star Line's rival, Cunard Line, specifically when they launched the Lusitania and the Mauretania. However, Britannic's construction was delayed in 1911 because the quote-unquote letter of agreement was not signed. It was finally signed in October before the keel was laid the following month, and construction would thus begin. In 1912, specifically April, Britannic's sister ship, the now infamous Titanic, would sink on her maiden voyage. While the disaster didn't delay Britannic's construction, she would require a new head designer, as her previous one died when Titanic sank. Her new designer, Edward Wilding, would decide that Britannic would need a double hull, as well as her already existing double bottom. When the new inner skin was fitted to Britannic, however, the size of her middle boiler would need reduced in boiler room number 5 because there would be not enough space afterwards, otherwise. She also ended up getting about 55 total lifeboats, including regular and collapsibles as a result of Titanic. She also had 5 gantry davits added, as well as 6 Welland davits, and 2 more Welland davits on her poop deck. She got a new bulkhead in the electric engine room, and 5 of her bulkheads were extended from E deck to B deck, and it increased her total number of watertight compartments as a result. After her launch in February 1914, Britannic would have her final fittings laid out in the Thompson dry dock. Some of these fittings she had was her propellers, which were considered the largest out of all the propellers on all 3 Olympic-class sisters. Britannic's central propeller was 16 feet 6 inches in diameter, while her 2 wing propellers were 23 feet 9 inches. And she had the same configuration, 2 wings and a central, or 3 blades, 4 blades, 3 blades. These huge giants would play the crucial role in her sinking, as they would be responsible for the Final Destination scenario that killed 30 men, which we will now go into. In November of 1916, His Majesty's hospital ship Britannic, after a brief stop in Naples, was on her way to her destination, which was towards the Kea Channel. Little did they know this would be her final destination, as she would strike a sea mine in the Aegean Sea on the morning of the 21st. When Britannic hit the mine, which was laid by a German U-boat, her captain, Charles Bartlett, would attempt to find a way to beach her and basically try to save his ship. He really did love her. But what he didn't realize was while the ship was still in motion, and thus her bow was going under, causing her stern to rise out of the water, the propellers would be still spinning, albeit now partly sticking out of the water. And another thing that Captain Bartlett did not realize, unfortunately until it was too late, was that 2 lifeboats got launched without his permission or his knowledge. Those 2 lifeboats that were launched were lifeboats number 2 and 4. These 2 lifeboats were lowered between 8:12 a.m. and 8:35 a.m., but they were caught in the whirlpool that was generated by the portside propeller before the lifeboats themselves were sucked into the propeller and destroyed. As a result, people were killed by the propellers themselves or by drowning, and in one case an individual even lost his arm. The people who lost their lives are mainly crewmen, a lieutenant, soldiers, and a baker. The youngest person who would lose his life was a 15-year-old by the name of Leonard George, a scullion whose fate was unknown, but he likely lost his life either in lifeboat number 2 or 4. And while all these lives were tragically lost, there were also some incredible survival stories from those who managed to escape. These survivors include 2nd Southampton Scout George Perman, who managed to grab hold of one of the hanging davit lines, and he held on until the propellers stopped moving. He then lowered himself into the water and managed to escape with only a few rope burns to his hands. It is unclear which lifeboat he was in, as he didn't give a number in his recollections of the disaster in his later life, probably because it was a bit too traumatic to think about. 2 other people who escaped the propellers were Violet Jessup and Archie Jewell. The sinking of the Britannic was the 2nd time that both Violet and Archie escaped from a sinking Olympic-class liner, having both survived the sinking of the Titanic in 1912. Violet Jessup managed to climb into lifeboat number 4, but she didn't jump in the sea until the very last moments possible. The propellers sucked Violet down underneath the water, but she survived, only to escape with a fractured skull. It is rather unclear how she actually fractured it, but it's very possible she was actually struck on her head by one of the propeller blades while they were still moving. Found a seat in lifeboat number 2 after he ran up on deck from down in the engine room. When that lifeboat was in the water, it was caught in propeller's draft and would get sucked in and destroyed. In a letter to his sister following the disaster, Archie described what happened when the lifeboat was sucked into the propeller in some morbid detail, and that is as follows. Most of us jumped in the water, but it was no good. We were pulled right in under the blades. I shut my eyes and said goodbye to this world, but I was struck with a big piece of the boat and got pushed right under the blades. I was going around like a top. I came up with some of the wreckage. Everything was going black to me when someone on top was struggling and pushed the wreckage away. So I came up just in time, as I was nearly done for. There was a poor fellow drowning, and he caught hold of me, but I had to shake him off, so the poor fellow went under. Archie actually managed to escape unharmed. Today, Britannic's propellers actually remain still in the 400 feet of water that she sank in. And like the ship itself, they remain in excellent condition due to the bacteria turning her into a man-made reef, as well as the high water temperature in the Aegean Sea. The propellers of the HMHS Britannic are a very haunting reminder that even if you are trying to escape a sinking ship, a lifeboat does not guarantee survival and, in the end, could just as well bring you to your final destination. This is tragically the case of lifeboats number 2 and 4. And while we can react to the footage through a very bad CGI movie made in 2000, or a real-time sinking animation that was made, we will always remember that the lives of the 30 people will never be forgotten.